clogging up toilets. What's the biggest? I thought about asking you this. I was like, screw it. Well, now, what's the biggest turd you ever seen?
Oh man, so
I know people have some borderline demonic stuff coming out of their body.
Funny enough, about 15 minutes from here was the craziest one I ever seen. I walked.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got a plumber in the house, Mr. Gary Goin.
Thanks for having me.
What's your? I meant to ask you this. What's your motto? We'll get you going. Is that what it is?
If you're not flowing, we'll get you going.
I love that. It's almost like a prostate medication too.
Yeah.
So, and you're self-employed. You know that to me, that's like the ultimate sign. I think you've made it. Like, I mean, obviously things can still happen, but still, it's like. I was telling some of my buddies, I'm like, being like a self-employed contractor. I mean, so how does that work for you? Do you have a group of guys or?
Yeah, so I've got a group of guys that I can call on for different things. Like if we need to install a water service or I need someone to dig something up, I've got guys for that. And so a lot of times, in the beginning, I would work alone and just take jobs on myself. And then whenever I was doing, a bigger job than, we was financially ready for at that point in time, I can call someone that's already got an excavator and they can come dig it up, use their insurance, all that good stuff. So it was kind of, at that point in time, that was the best bang for the buck. And so in all kinds of different avenues with plumbing, you run into people and meet people that, maybe you need drywall fixed after a job or something like that. And
so, I was gonna say, man, I know because when you came out and helped me earlier, and I'm just sitting there, like, my first thought was like, this toilet's not flushing. Like, how much is this gonna cost? And then you're like, oh, just get that little router, that little auger. And I'm like, dude, and you made it look so fucking easy, man.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a skill. So what got you into plumbing?
So, when I was younger, I living with mom and dad, I had a little more freedom and not so much responsibility. So I had time to kind of venture through a couple different avenues. And so I started off kind of, after the teenage fast food restaurant, I would move on to.
You worked in a fast food restaurant?
Yeah. So like my first job was McDonald's and,
Hell yeah.
little stuff like that. And then I'd move on to, I went to lineman school and CDL school, and I did some landscaping. And
man, that's crazy, dude. Oh my god. Yeah, I interviewed a lineman, and he was a trooper for 15 years, and he was like, I got out of it, and he was telling me how challenging it was. What was the hardest one, you think?
I would say probably lineman school.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, because I climbed cell phone towers there for a little bit, and lineman school. I mean, they're a different breed. They're real tough men and women, mentally and physically, and just the top of that telephone pole. It moves a good little bit. So if you're not comfortable with something like that it might not be the avenue for you. But climbing the cell phone towers. I think the tallest one I climbed, I didn't do anything crazy, but it was like 260 feet, and I would have taken that all day long.
Really?
Over a telephone pole. Oh, yes.
Why?
It doesn't move as much. So
just...
even in a storm, it sways a little bit, but at the top of that telephone pole, you're moving, and so you really better, mentally, you got to trust your equipment.
Okay.
And, yeah, it's...
Psychologically, but fuck, 260 feet, bro.
Yeah.
How do you get up there? Climb the ladder?
So on the telephone pole or
the cell phone tower?
So the cell phone tower, a lot of times on your harness, there's a cable that goes up the ladder and you latch onto it. And so one way it's sliding up the cable, and then if you jerk it the other way, it locks, and so you won't go anywhere.
But you still, who puts the cable to the top of the tower?
So that's
another company?
Yeah, that's a portion that I wouldn't be super familiar with.
You got to trust them that they did a good job too.
Yeah, you got to make sure.
Fuck.
everything's taken care of up there, and
God,
sometimes it's not a ladder. Sometimes they're free climbing, and not technically free climbing. They've still got equipment, but you're hanging your hooks one at a time. And, if you're
distracted,
not thinking, or getting absent-minded or something, and you forget here and there. Yeah, because once you get to the top, you're hooking onto this portion, and you can only move so much. You'll be hooked on with this hook. You got to hook on with this hook before you take that hook off. And if you're not paying attention, you get a little too comfortable, and bad things can happen.
What do you got to go up there and do? I saw one video of a guy that had to go up and change like light bulbs on some kind of utility pole or tower.
Yeah, so I never messed with that, and that's a whole nother animal, because those are 2,000 foot.
Yeah, it was stupid.
Crazy ones, and they've got their ones at like 200 feet and so on for like helicopters and stuff like that. But we worked on a lot of like antenna maintenance and painting the lines or painting stuff like that. And
that's 260 feet, man.
Yeah. When I first looked at it, because it was when I first begun, and I don't like heights, but I got into this because of lineman school, and I wanted to prove something to myself. But yeah, when I looked up, it was almost like it went up and then kind of bent out, and I was just like, I do not want to get up there.
So you stuck with plumbing then?
Yeah.
You were telling me earlier about basically you felt like it was almost not divine intervention. I mean, I guess you could say that, but you were saying something about how you prayed about.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So when I was trying this job and this job, I just wasn't loving it. Mm-hmm. And so back in the day, Facebook had a page where you could fill out applications, kind of like Indeed, but it was real quick. And I just filled out, 100, 150 applications for anything that sounded interesting. And this plumbing company was one of the first people to reach out to me. And they kind of gave me the rundown about you can go through school, and one day you could own your own company, and great benefits and pay down the road. Mm-hmm. Once you get licensed and everything. And I didn't pay too much attention to that, but I told him I'd come in for an interview and talk to him, and I really didn't want to, because I had no idea what plumbing was or anything like that. And so when I got there, it was the weirdest thing, because I had prayed that the Lord would lead me in the direction he wanted me. And when I walked through the front door, I wish I could remember what it was, but there's a Bible verse on the wall, and I was like, man, this is getting a little creepy. And
that's good, man.
Yeah.
I was just talking, so the clinical psychologist that I interviewed, he's basically very, very, faith-based, and only works with first responders. And he said that, he's basically like, he didn't really kind of put like a scientific spin on it, but he was just like, well, it's one of those things where it's important to me because of the scripture and referring back to that. And I was like, okay, I've struggled with it personally.
Yeah.
Getting into just religion in general. I've struggled with, from the way my family treated me and stuff like that. Like I said in his interview, it was tough to it's tough to go as a open-minded person and just like, but then again, I'm like, man, I believe in that too. I really do.
Absolutely. And, just normal human nature, just hearing this story or this story, human nature, you're like, hang on a minute,
Well, you get those people that are like, oh, it's like I got my legs chopped off. Pray that God will give them back. It's like, listen, I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah. I mean, there is such a thing as free will that extends to, hey, if you get your legs or something bad happens to you, that can happen. I mean, it's
and it's one of those things that I rely on it pretty heavily, but I won't push it on somebody, because it's like leading the horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah,
you don't want to pressure someone into it. It's something you got to find for your own, and it'll come if you're looking. If you allow it, it'll come. But yeah, it is very tough to adapt to.
Yeah, no, I've had some weird stuff happen in my life, and I'm like, oh, that could have been God. For sure. But I know, man, you and I were talking one night, and like I was like, we need to talk about this, and you were like, yeah, let's just talk about this stuff because I just love getting into any and every little thing. So how long ago did you start plumbing? So you're young.
Yeah, I would say probably about 9 years ago.
You've been at it for a little while.
Yeah, when I started, and I started my company in 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that was a wild door opener too. My wife had gotten real sick. She had a blood issue where the platelets in her blood were not clotting correctly, and so she would start getting these bruises all over the place. And at first we was like, maybe you're just sensitive or bumping into stuff and not realizing it. And then she got them on like the tops of her feet, and I was like, okay,
this is weird.
Yeah, we need to get this checked out. And so she was in and out of the hospital. They were trying transfusions. They were trying steroids. They ended up taking her spleen.
Oh my God.
Yeah, nothing was working. And so the company I was with, at first they were like, take care of your family, work when you can. And so I was trying to work, but also, 3 times a week taking her to the doctor, for 8-hour transfusion or steroids or stuff like that. And eventually they had let me go. Well, probably 2 years before then, I started thinking, I do want to try out a company. And so I had my name, and I started getting stuff, getting tools, getting materials.
I was gonna say, bro, that sounds like starting a company. It can be easy if you're starting one of these little, like, I don't know, but that sounds like
it's a whole lot. But yeah, when they decided to part ways, I was just like,
this is my green light to go do my own thing.
Yeah, this is the door opening, so let's try it out. And
when you have, and this is any profession, like when you are not confident about something, do you rely on, okay, hey, I can rely on a mentor, like
right, yeah. So even now there's jobs that I haven't done a million of them, but this person's asking, and you can pretty much figure it out. If I get so uncomfortable with it that I just think it's out of my realm of area, those, luckily I can turn things down. Now, I'm not going to provide this customer with a product or anything or an experience that I can't 100% say I am the best candidate for you to take care of that customer. So I will turn them down, and I'll tell them exactly why, because I think you would have a better experience with someone with some more experience than this. But most things I run into, there's nerves and everything, because once you're on a company, there's no supervisor, there's no backup plan to come save you and stuff like that. You can ring an old supervisor, and he can maybe give you some advice here or there, or maybe watch a video. But a lot of plumbing is messing up and figuring it out and stuff like that. So
you helped me out today, and you made it look easy, man. So I like I was saying earlier, it's a skill, bro. I had that damn auger there, and I'm like, it won't go.
Yeah,
you're just like, there's 6 feet already down in there. I'm like, God, bro, like that's pretty cool to watch, man. It really is. And I enjoyed it. I really did.
Yeah, and just repetitiveness and doing it every day.
People clogging up toilets. What's the biggest? I thought about asking you this. I was like, screw it. Well, now, what's the biggest turd you ever seen?
Oh man, so
I know people have some borderline demonic stuff coming out of their body.
Funny enough, about 15 minutes from here was the craziest one I ever seen. I walked in, and it was a mobile home, and you walk in, and there was trash all. It was the craziest thing. It was
Like a
all the
hoarder?
way up to the ceiling. Oh, big hoarder.
Yeah.
Big
Okay.
time. And it was all through their house, but there was a perfect path to their couch, a perfect path to the bathroom. Well, when you got to the bathroom, the entire sink was mold black. The mirror, they had like the little tiled bathtub and everything on the sides. It's the tub is black all the way up it, and the toilet's completely clogged all the way. And I don't know how big this turd was, and I almost felt like they were setting me up because
Like, is there cameras in here?
yeah, and so on the rim of the toilet, there's this turd just hanging out of the toilet, and I was just like, is this even real life? Like,
What? So was this a landlord tenant situation, or were they the mobile home owner?
yeah, it was the mobile home owners, and they just called us out, and you know, at that time and company,
I don't know what's wrong.
yeah, I remember they wanted you to push like memberships and stuff, and I called the office. I was like, I cannot sell them a membership. I cannot do this to another plumber. But we was able to clear the clog and everything, and yeah,
God bless you.
And like I said, I don't know how big that thing was because water was way up too, but it was hanging
Like a baby crocodile just hanging out of the
just
water.
hanging over the rim. And that's why I was like, are you guys serious? But you know, at that point in time, you go in there and you just bypass everything. I'm just there to do a job and not think about it. But yeah.
Well, and plumber stuff, you have a very wide spectrum of knowledge about a bunch of different things, pipes and you know, different because it can get dangerous too, man. I mean, it can get
because we do, you know, a little bit of each trade, you know, not every trade, but you know, you're doing concrete work, you're doing, some of them do drywall work, you know, you're doing framing work a lot of times, you know, plumbing, a little bit of electrical stuff like that. And
I don't think you'll run out of, I mean, and you said something about being able to turn down jobs now. Like, I think that's the biggest goal is like you get to a point where you're like, all right, like,
yeah, because there's some times where it just gets to be too much, and you know, you can't get to everything. Like, I think it was it last year we had that big freeze, and I had more calls in that 3 days than I had in the last 6 months, and it got to the point where we were scheduling at first, and then we were putting people in line, and then I finally had to call it and just say we can't take anymore. And
damn.
So yeah.
Well, and you know, a job can range from 10 minutes to 10 hours, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, or God, even longer. I mean, what kind of, like, what's the average, I guess, call? Probably a clogged toilet or a pipe issue, or
you know, so a lot of times it's not a whole lot of dirty stuff.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah,
sure.
a lot of times, you know, you're just replacing a faucet, or maybe someone's installing a dishwasher, or, you know, remodeling a kitchen. So maybe you're moving some water lines in the drain line and stuff like that. So a lot of times it's just someone kind of doing an update, or maybe someone's husband tried to do something himself and found out the hard way, and so it gets a lot like that. And you know what, I feel both ways for it. You know, I'm proud of the people that actually gave it a shot, but there's sometimes you walk into and you're like, man, I wish you wouldn't have touched this. But
like DIY people, like
but I can always respect someone. You know, I don't know everything, I never will. I can respect someone that calls someone
like,
to,
you have screwed this up so fucking bad.
and most of the time they admit it. I should have never touched it. And
I've been there.
I get it. You know.
Yeah. I've done that with my hair before. I'm like, hey, back when I had hair, I'm like, can you fix this, please? And you're like, oh my God. But yeah. So how much do you feel like, I don't know, with God and religion, you feel like plays a part in, like, and I had a pastor on, he's such a nice guy. His audio was messed up. That's 100% my fault. So I've got to get that uploaded. But, he just said that, like, he's like, well, my son was proof enough when he was born that there was something out there.
Yeah. You know, having children definitely brings a broader perspective to it. I think it's something that comes to you naturally, or you just can't explain. Because, like I was saying with my wife and her blood problems, they called it a idiopathic diagnosis. They couldn't figure out why it was doing it. They took her spleen because they thought her antibodies were attacking her platelets. That didn't fix it. The steroids didn't fix it. The transfusions didn't fix it. And the weirdest thing was, we went to this church, and sometimes we would go every week. Sometimes it would be every other week, or, we'd miss a few weeks depending on how she was and stuff like that. And I remember it had been probably a month and a half since we went, and we didn't request anything. They didn't ask. They didn't know we were coming, anything. And I'm sitting there alone. She ended up staying at home, and I'd opened up their pamphlet, and on prayer request was her name. And I was like, that's weird. And they started praying for her, and they started praying about, her platelets and stuff like that. And like I said, they never knew I was coming or anything, so that was cool to see that in the audience. But it was after that day, she's never had an issue again.
Really?
And so that it's stuff like that, like, it's just unexplainable. I can't say what happened, if we got lucky, what was the timing, was there some kind of chemical imbalance that
I get what you're not saying that it was.
Yeah,
but you got to admit it's a hell of a I kind of and it's my fault too, but it's like I get mad at like I said. So my mom died when I was 9. My dad died when I was 1, and I went and lived with my aunt and uncle, and then went shortly after that, I went into the foster care system, and my aunt and uncle just treated us, my brother and I, like garbage. But they were in church Wednesday, Sunday, potluck dinners, whatever. And that just, once I got older and like I said, a little more, I don't say open-minded, but just kind of like, okay, like, what's this whole, religion thing about? That made, it shut me off from religion altogether. Yeah. But then again, man, I hear stories like you're saying. I hear stories from people, and I'm like, okay. Like, I don't believe we are here for any old reason, and I definitely don't believe in the Big Bang Theory.
Right. Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And that to me is, like you said, idiopathic. That is a scientist's way of saying we don't know how we got here. We exploded into existence. And it's like, no, man, come on, bro. Like,
yeah. And those people, you got good eggs and bad eggs everywhere. And so you got to kind of watch who you're listening to and watch who you're following, because, those people that go to church and then, they act a fool the rest of the week, maybe not the people you should be taking advice from. But like I said, it's almost something you got to find on your own. I mean, obviously pay attention to scripture and pay attention to the details, and you pick and choose, what makes sense to you and stuff like that. And, maybe it'll come naturally to you. Mm-hmm. I guess everyone probably thinks a little bit different on it, but like I said, I don't like to push it on anyone, but...
Well, you're a salt of the earth type guy, so I feel like...
Yeah, I try to see both sides of the road and stuff like that, because it's confusing, and, even today, I question it all the time.
Well, I hear people, like, well, there was... Jesus was based on this deity that existed 25 million years before he did. I'm like, bro, listen. For one, that is so far away. Like, and I wasn't there when Jesus was around, like,
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. I do think it's fascinating, though, when you look at, like, Hollywood. This is kind of getting into the conspiracy thing we were talking about, but, like, Hollywood, somebody was talking about on their podcast how celebrities never really mention God anymore. They don't mention God, like, once they get to a certain level of fame, and it's almost like, the Hollywood the Hollywood elite, or the uber, like, secluded, like the Epstein thing, and I've heard rumors about all different types of celebrities, but, like, it's fascinating to me how they live.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't care. I'm not jealous of them. I don't want all the money in the world. I still kind of like to grind a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm just a blue collar guy at heart, but I'm also fascinated. I'm like, man, you think they're in there drinking like baby's blood?
Yeah.
Burning candles? I don't know, man. I believe there's definitely something.
There's definitely some some crazy control going on right there. And like you said, I wouldn't want to do it either, because I'm sure they wish they had the freedom I have. I can turn around and go to Florida tomorrow if I want. It's, hey, you need to be here, you need to be here, you need to be here. And, you know, they're being controlled by someone. And, you know, like you said about the baby's blood thing, you know, keep them young and everything. You know, there's a lot of crazy stories, and, you know, like their secret meetings underneath the city and stuff where, you know, a regular civilian wouldn't have access to. And so, yeah, there's a lot of...
Well, and they automatically get ushered into like when it comes to politics, and it's like, man, you're not qualified to speak on this.
Yeah.
You know, they'll have there'll be a guest speaker, and then they're like, I'm like, what? You act in movies, you're a court jester.
Yeah.
Like your job is you're an entertainer.
Yep.
You know, like you get Dwayne Johnson up there and he's talking about whatever, and it's like, dude, you're an actor that was a pro wrestler.
Right.
Like your whole thing is, you know,
and that, you know, they get that following, and, you know, everyone believes that everything they say. And,
yes,
you know, it's like today, you know, I have people that absolutely love Trump, and I have people that, boy, you better
there's
watch
never
what you
been
say.
a more polarizing president. And I will say this, people are like, you're open, and I don't really care. I look at it this way. I'm like, if you don't like what I say, that's fine. I've never voted in my life, and people are like, why not? But I'm like, that's my right to not vote, as much as I was in the military. So I went and joined up to defend your right to vote. But it's also like, I just hear people and I'm like, man, it is crazy. But I also think too, I think there's been just as, you know, like, there's been Bush, not the original Bush, the second one. He was hilarious.
Yeah.
But he was so stupid. But like, I think now, man, with social media, our generation is how interwoven we are with technology has secluded us even more.
Oh yeah.
And man, if you can look at a gardening video, and people will be in the comment section like, I like fighting.
Oh,
and I'm like, what are you arguing about?
Yeah. Yeah,
they get nasty.
Oh yeah, that water is contaminated with this. Why
Like,
aren't
yeah,
you
what-
using this?
yes, and I
all
get-
kinds of crazy stuff.
man,
And
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%,
yeah,
man.
and you know that's like I said. You know, they're separated one way or another, and you know that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. Everyone is entitled to what they believe and their opinions and everything. One thing that I believe very strongly is you got to have common sense, because if you're, you know, let's say Trump's side, he gets a little crazy sometimes.
Oh, he says what he
But at the end of it, you know, you can't agree with everything this side says or everything this side says. You got to have some common ground. You know, at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for your family. You got to think about, you know, they said this, and it's like, whoa, you know, let's have some common ground. Just because he said this country is this, that it doesn't mean you got to fully jump on board. Let me jump on Facebook and, you know, agree with everything. It is okay to disagree. It is okay to have common sense still and common ground. And, you know, whether you're on this side or this side, you know, use your head still.
That's where I talk to people. I mean, I have had friends that I've lost due to my job as a police officer. And I always try to take the time to explain to them, hey, listen, first and foremost, I was the same person I was back then. I still have the same values. I still but they jump on this bandwagon of like, oh, you're out here oppressing people and you're out here. And I'm like, listen, man, I have tried to do nothing but good. And if I ever feel like I want to do otherwise, I'm gonna turn my badge in. I'm gonna go. But with politics, you know, you can agree with, like you were kind of saying, like you can agree with this part or disagree with this part, dude. If you side at all a little bit with Trump, or you side at all a little bit with whoever else, Kamala, then it's like
that's it.
But I don't know. and I get it, man. One of my buddies was like, I don't discuss politics in my own house. And I'm like, what? Like, why not? Like, it's your house. No one's like listening to you. Like, no one's bugging your house. He's like, that's not why. He's like, because your wife might not agree with something. And then all of a sudden it's like,
Yep.
you know, and I'm not saying I can knock down Dragon over it, but like,
Right. Yeah.
you know, her and I don't have the same. I mean, we don't perfectly align with one another.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
there's certain things she likes, and I'm like, I don't agree. But
Yeah.
you know what? I still got to go to work tomorrow.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it's also I do believe, going back to religion, and you could tie it into both the conspiracy theory thing. Like, there's a movie, and now it is a Christian produced movie, and it's got some right wing propaganda in it. So it's like you can pick out the political parts, but it's still a really great movie.
Yeah.
And it's called Nefarious, and it's a death row inmate that is his first psychiatrist kills himself.
Okay.
He just like the opening scene is the psychiatrist sitting at a desk and he's filling out his will. He takes the elevator up and you see it goes back to his office and he's in one of those like high-rise buildings and you just see him fly past his window. He jumps off the roof. Well, they get a new psychiatrist to take over, and this new psychiatrist now this is the movie was actually very, very good, like accurate. Mm-hmm. The problem with the movie was the guy was supposed to be executed like that day. So they come in, they're like, hey, listen, you got until 4:00 today to determine if this guy's competent to stand trial. So pretty much the whole movie is this psychiatrist talking to this inmate in this room, and he's possessed. And he starts telling him shit that he would never have known, and just starts telling him all this stuff. And it was crazy. I loved it. And there's none of this like The Exorcist where the guy gets red eyes or his head's twisted around. It's none of that. He looks like a normal human being.
Yeah.
But he lets the other guy come out for a second and go back. It was free on YouTube. I just watched it a couple days ago. And I was like, man, but what he's saying is very true. I do believe that. I tell people all the time, like, you can't deny that evil exists.
Right. Yeah.
And that the demon that's the demon's name is Nefarious. It rings true today. I feel like we are getting further and further away. Now, I'm not. Have you ever thought about the rapture? I used to think about it all the time.
Yeah. Kind of got, mixed feelings on it. Kind of, going back to the.
I guess it depends on
era.
what denomination. Some people don't believe in the Trinity, and some people don't believe that. I don't know, but
yeah, because a lot of people believe when you die you're just laying there asleep. You don't know what's going on. Some people, mom's watching over me or whatever. Yeah. So it kind of I've heard this and I've heard that, and like I said, I don't know.
Well, the Bible, it says two different things. It says that you will go to be with the Lord who created you or something like that. But then it says that the dead know nothing and shall know nothing until the return. Right. Something. And I'm not quoting it. It's two different necks of the woods on, hey, you're asleep until, the dead in Christ shall rise first.
Right.
Type thing. But someone did say that your spirit still does go to be with the Lord. Your fleshly, your earthly body will be made new.
Right.
And that's what rises. So I'm like, it's like the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like Revelation chapter 9, like it talks about like, like it's scary.
It's a scary chapter.
Ooh, but
yeah.
I don't know, man. I feel like it's one of those things where it scares me. It really does. I'm 33 and I'm like, I remember 10 years ago I said I'll figure this out one day.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm further in the weeds now than I was then. Because I was just like, hey, God's real. Jesus died on the cross for my sins, and this is it. And I knew, like, I would always try to anytime I was going through something, I always prayed, and it did make me feel better. But then now as I'm older, I don't know what got into me, where I was just like, maybe it's
Well, a lot of people look at it the same way, and bad things happen, bad luck happens, and like you said, free will. Guy driving down the interstate, nothing's stopping him from slamming into you, that's free
Yes.
will, that's his choice, and
Yeah.
that's what came into the world when sin was created and stuff like that. And so a lot of people, they see it that way, and it's hard to think, well, if this guy loves me so much, why is all this happening to me? And it's I feel like it's human nature. And
Well, I have an answer for when people ask me that. And I'm like, if I was a devout, like I truly believe that free will is, because that's what that demon is talking through that inmate. That's what
Okay.
he's saying is, our goal is to destroy you, his his most beloved creation or whatever.
Yep.
He wants to destroy humankind. But God chose free will so that he could be loved or something like that. But then again, it's like, that's not slavery then if you have will.
Yeah.
Because people make it out to like, oh, well, Christianity is just like, why would you want to die and go to heaven and just worship God all day, all night, and you never have? And I'm like, I don't know what heaven's like.
Right.
And if it's heaven, I have no problem. Like, I don't know. Truly, no one knows. That's still here.
And it's a scary thing to even think about. Is like, ever since I was a kid, the word forever, that terrifies me.
Yeah.
If you really dissect the word forever, it's not 30 years, it's not 300 years, it's forever. So
On and on
when
and on.
I was a kid, I was like, is heaven going to get boring? Is it going to get repetitive? Is it going to do this?
Pretty good thought.
Yeah, and then you think, time up there, is it like that? Is it quick? Is it,
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it, it would, if you could live forever.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, how old are you?
32.
Okay. So 20 years ago, you were 12. But let's say 20 years ago, you were 32.
Yeah.
Like, you're still doing the same thing. You don't retire. Or you say, you know what, I've been a plumber for 57 years, and I know everything there is to know about it. Are you going to go be something else, or are you going to continue doing that because you're an expert in it now? But it's like, you would live with your wife, your children. Then again, it would be hard to, like, okay, are they going to stay the same age forever? Like,
Right. Yeah.
it's kind of hard to, it's hard to like compare all that. But
yeah. And
it would never get boring, I guess, because then
no.
I don't know. Forever's a long freaking time, though.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that the more you.
That's what Jeff Bezos said, by the way. Oh shit, it's all good. He said that he's wanting to go to, like, what was he supposed to go to the moon?
Yeah, I believe so. Or yeah,
He wore like an astronaut suit, or
Yeah.
like that. It looked like a race car driver, and he had a cowboy hat on. I was like, man, that is next level douchery right there.
Yeah.
I love it.
yeah,
He's wanting to go to, like, which hey man, but
Hey.
I don't know. It's so fascinating to talk about this stuff, man, because I think about I think about it a lot.
yeah,
Like,
and like you say, when you get up there and everything, what is there to do, or is it forever and stuff like that, and they say there's no tears, there's no sadness, there, everything's happy, and part of me is like, I had a dog for 17 years, and it's like,
I see my dog again.
I would love to go up there and have tears of joy, see them running up, or I hope that I recognize people for who they are, and that's another thing that scares me and confuses me. Like,
I've heard
will
that
I know
too.
my wife? Or
She won't be. You'll know who she is, but she won't be. And I don't know. I listen. I don't think it could be heaven without But then you hear people like that have had near death experiences, like they died and they went to heaven. And they're like, oh I saw
yeah, and
Grandma Betty.
Yeah, and those are the ones that, like, I wouldn't feed into them too much. Cause,
Listen, I went down a rabbit hole one night, and this guy's, but there is my biggest thing is there a scientific explanation for it? If there is, then I'm like,
Yeah.
And your brain can release chemicals when you're dying that makes 15 minutes seem like an eternity.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a psychedelic trip.
Yeah, and I don't doubt people, have visions, or, do this or do that and have a really vivid dream, and a lot of those stories, they make sense, and some of them are way out there, and so I kind of pick and choose.
One of the biggest things, and I was just telling someone the story 2 nights ago, was her grandmother. So my mother died in 2001, and it was in 2015. My oldest was a year old. So I go and pick him up from her grandmother's house at like 4 p.m. And Bria's still at work. And so I go and pick him up, and I didn't like her grandmother. That's an important detail in the story because I never told her anything because I didn't like her. All right. So I remember picking my son up, and I got my back to her grandmother, and she goes, "Oh, I saw your mom today." And I'm like, well, maybe she's talking about Bria, like my son's mom.
Yeah.
So I go, when did she stop by? And she goes, "No, I saw your mom today." I'm like, "You didn't see my mom? Like, she's been dead for a long time." And she's like, "Oh no." She's like, "She's got that shawl. She's real short." Dude, I got goosebumps just telling the story.
Uh-huh.
She's got black hair, silver, green eyes, and she's wearing a shawl. And I'm like, dude, I started backing away. Look at that. Oh, yeah. Yep. I started backing away. I was like, I said, "Bria," I said, "When did Bria tell you that?" And she goes, "She didn't tell me that." Listen, this is like a 72-year-old woman. I would have rather been in there with a 6'8" monster trying to kill me. It was terrifying.
No, I bet.
And she just goes, "She didn't tell me that." And I'm like, oh, fuck. So I'm just over here like trying to like play cool. I'm like, "Well, what happened?" She's like, "Well," so when you walk in the house through the front door, the living room's right to you, directly to your left. It feeds into the kitchen through a doorway, and then there's another doorway leading out of the kitchen into a hallway.
Okay.
So there's 2 ways to get into the kitchen. And the main hallway is straight back, and there's a bathroom and there's bedrooms, and the bathroom's at the very, very back, the very last door. It's in the middle of the hallway. And she said she was coming out of the bathroom, and so you're eye to eye with the front door, straight down the hall.
Okay.
And she said my mom was standing at the front door, and she's scowling at her. Like, she pats my son on the head, and then she just like walks away. And she like, I ran around the corner trying to find her, and she was gone. But she described her to a T. And I told Bria later, I said, "Hey, can I ask you something?" I said, "Your grandmother," well, no, I asked her first. I said, "Did you ever tell your grandmother like what my mom looked like?" And I had no pictures.
Yeah.
Bria didn't see a picture of my mom until probably like, I don't know, a few years later. And she's like, "No, I didn't. And I was like, "Listen, this lady just described to me what my mom looked like, what she wore," and I was like, to me, that was honestly the biggest proof I've ever had of something else. Demonic, I don't know, because, I mean, but, you know, she said, she'd tell me something. She'd go, "The spirit told me this." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I thought it was all crockery, you know, but then she said that one day, and I was like, I got to get out. Dude, I spun gravel getting out of that driveway.
Yeah. It's scary stuff.
I was like, but it was like a revelation for me. Yeah. And anytime I really go, I'm a full blown atheist. I always think back to that, and I go, no, I'm not.
Yeah, there's
something else.
Yeah, and you know, it's crazy. Like, people say there's no such thing as ghosts or spirits or anything. It's like, you dig, you'll find.
Yeah, part of me, I'm very curious about this stuff. And you can get atheists, some of them. I mean, there's people that'll do it, obviously, but it's like, go sit down in front of a Ouija board and I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that.
Oh yeah, see what happens. You dabble, you'll open some doors.
Yeah, I believe that for sure. And you know, I don't ever, I'm you know, I'm curious up to a point, but
yeah.
I'm telling you, man, once that happened, I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to go back to the drawing board, and maybe I'll just go back to the Bible, and, you know. So.
Yeah, and you know, that's one thing that, you know, I find people interesting, even if you don't believe. I find your opinions and beliefs interesting, and I like to listen.
Well, one of the quotes that was very powerful to me, though, is really powerful, was but it's not 100% true and accurate, is every man's religion is a local religion. But my father's a good example of that, because he was from Turkey. Most Turkish people are Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
He was a Catholic. But he was also like had a heart on for America. And when he got over here, he was just like, yeah. But most people are. If you grow up, you know, I grew up in South Georgia. Buddy, it's a Bible Belt. I mean, Indiana even. I mean, you know, there's some hardcore Bible thumping people.
Oh yeah.
So like, I've never met a Muslim that was like, yeah, I'm from Indianapolis.
Right. Yeah.
You imagine? Like,
I'm telling you.
I mean, you know, I don't. But you know, you get what I'm saying. Like that quote's powerful. It is when you think about it. It's like, okay, you know, it's, and then people can say, well, you know, you grew up in a household that was Catholic or Lutheran or whatever, and that's why you have that faith.
Yep.
I just try to stay open minded, but I've got these little markers that always point me like back to like, oh shit, yep, nope, that's, you know, I can't back out of it completely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but yeah, well, listen, man, I think we've been at this for like an hour, maybe an hour. I don't know. How did you enjoy it?
I did.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like you said, it's just, you know,
two guys having a conversation.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, I deeply appreciate you making time and coming and unclogging my toilet.
Yeah.
And all the other stuff we got into. So I think that was it. That was a good one. Another good one.
One that's like really got my attention lately. Have you dabbled in the Antarctica wall?
No.
Oh man.
See, you know all this shit. I don't know. Like, I don't know any of that stuff.
One night, just search the Antarctica wall.
I'll do it tonight.
And because you think every country, well, probably not every country, but a lot of countries, including us, you know,
Antarctica. It's kind of hot here. Yeah. No, you can sit back down if you want. I don't care.
But Antarctica, you know, is
toasty in here.
It's kind of like no man's land.
Oh yeah.
Nobody owns it and stuff like that. And what they say is,
oh shit,
the Earth as we know it is bullshit. Essentially, they say Antarctica is not a continent; it's a surrounding. And so a lot of people believe, you know, it's flat Earth and not round Earth. And
I've heard.
You know, I'm not. I'm probably more round than flat, but I'm also, you know, open to, you know, learn. And it kind of made sense. If Antarctica is right here and everything else we know is right here, what's behind the wall is like make Area 51 look like Child's Play type stuff. And there's all kinds of different theories and, you know, pilots that have went over there and
didn't come back.
Yeah, or they did come back and they say, you know, they seen aliens and different stuff, or, you know, people believe that that's where the dinosaurs are, you know. So at first I'm like, okay, you know, we're a little far, but then, you know, there's certain things that do make sense about it.
So astrobiology is I don't know if it's a study, but astrobiology is all about, I need to shim that door, man. You see where it's like touching the carpet? I just always, it'll wear itself out over a couple of years, but I think it's interesting though, like talking about the Bible and stuff, like somebody brought it up on YouTube. He's like a pastor. I think it's so interesting, like, there's no mention of there's all these planets and how many different trillions of stars there are and galaxies and all this shit. Mm-hmm. But then, like, I firmly believe, dude, the only thing I don't believe is her brother will flat out tell you, he's like, we're in the Matrix. And I said, describe the Matrix. And he said, exactly like in the movie. And Brandon's he's a decently intelligent guy. And I said, Brandon, here's the problem with that. I said, you're taking a man-made creation, a movie that was 20 years ago. What was the first Matrix, like 2002 or something like that. Yeah. And I said, you're saying that the Earth, as we know it, they just now, like, no. I was like, no. But then they'll talk about God and Christianity. I said, how the fuck are we going to be in a Matrix?
Yeah.
And Jesus died on the cross. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But I'm all about stuff that makes sense. And this is more like, so is this man-made, this whole thing you're talking about?
I don't think it's man-made.
A wall?
Yeah, so they
I've heard of the Antarctic wall.
Imagine instead of Antarctica being a continent, that it's just an ice wall all around the world. And So
like it's going halfway down the Earth and splitting it in half, or it's at the top.
Imagine if the Earth was flat, and so like right here
I see.
is our Earth, ocean, complete wall that
keeping stuff in.
And then they're saying what is
behind the wall
outside of that, and there's some interesting things that kind of caught my attention. Some of them are you can tell they're someone seen it and ran with a story and stuff like that, but then there's stuff where you're like, that's interesting because the pictures that supposedly have come from it, it's not
what about nice. The US what is it?
It's green, it's like a different world over there. Like everything is vegetated, it's
okay.
It's almost like a summer day here.
Okay.
Yeah. Obviously, there's got to be some kind of cold weather.
Oh yeah.
But that it's something you might dabble into.
What was I going to ask? The Trump was talking about the UFO disclosure and how they were going to do that, and possibly like the JFK, which I'm not trying to be mean. I saw the video of him getting shot, and it looks, unless it was AI generated, it's a very, very widely pushed, distributed video. It's got millions and millions of views, and it's brutal. My thing is, this was in what, 1960 something?
Yeah. 63?
I know Martin Luther King got shot in 68.
Yeah.
They had a camera right there.
Oh yeah. Right.
And there's fucking tons of conspiracies about that.
Oh yeah.
It was a brutal shot.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen
it. In the motorcade, John Kennedy?
No.
She's jumping over to the back of his car and she's trying to pick his brains up. Yeah, it was fucked up. Like his skull, they have a picture of his when he's on the table. It was fucked up. I don't believe Tupac's alive though either, because that picture, and the person that would have had to do AI on that would have had to know, and it's exactly what they fucking do to you when they do an autopsy. Yeah.
Now, have you dabbled into like Elvis Presley?
No.
So there's a guy that's like a preacher or whatever, and there's so many, like you'll have to search it because it's been so long since I've messed with it, but it's when they put the puzzle together, you're like, maybe.
Oh, dude, I listen. I believe.
Or like Michael Jackson and whatever his friend's name is, but it's this dude that has clearly had plastic surgery, and his voice is perfect, and you're just like, body style, everything's perfect, and it's like, he had the money to disappear. Same thing, like the submarine that went down. Is it possible they just started a new life and went down there?
Yeah,
that's a good way to disappear.
Well, that could be a dummy submarine. They just imploded. Yeah. Oh, it exploded.
Yeah,
because it's the. My biggest problem with that is a very simple one. Why would billionaires? These make millionaires look like, hey, listen, you can't play.
Yeah.
They were getting shit from like sporting goods stores or something. Did they have a controller?
Yeah.
Because they were making memes like when your controller.
Yeah, because they had a video of him messing. It was like a PlayStation.
Yeah, I was like,
and it's like, no.
You wouldn't do that, and if you did do that, I think you would do it just to be funny. Like, hey, look,
because it's like, how stupid do you really think we are?
Yeah. Yeah, that was my biggest. Sometimes it's the small strings that get everything unraveled, and that was for me. I was like, listen, there's no way in hell. And another simple thing is, who's the guy that Cameron? He did Avatar and Terminator, not Terminator. James Cameron.
Okay. Yep.
Were they going to see the Titanic wreckage?
Yeah.
He's been to the Titanic wreckage 33 times.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they ask him?
Right.
These are billionaires.
Yeah.
Hey, listen.
They didn't ask him to rescue. They didn't ask him. They're all searching for. And okay, it's America. We have everything.
Yeah.
And we can't find a submarine that can go to that depth.
Oh, Well, they did a documentary on the
They were bringing in
the Marianas Trench is the deepest part of the ocean. It's like 7 miles deep, and they were deploying people down there.
Yeah, but then when this happened, we're having someone come from 8,000 miles away, and it's like
I don't know. Yeah,
the military didn't.
Do you think? What do you think they did though? Do you think they just like? But I believe you. Listen, that is 100%.
Yeah, I don't think 8 billionaires went down there and was like, "Hey, man, did you weld this up last night? All right, let's go."
You got enough duct tape on this?
Right.
No.
Yeah, that's fine. All 8 of you, because unless it was handed to him, you know, being a billionaire, I would think that takes some brain work.
And they're not. They're going to have the best engineer. But then again, it's like, are they that stupid?
Yeah.
That they didn't.
I doubt it.
Because listen, like pulling a toilet, I've never pulled a toilet once. You've probably pulled 33 toilets.
Yeah.
Or close to that, or I'm sure more than that.
Yeah.
I'm going to come to you and be like, hey, bro, listen, I got to pull a toilet.
Right.
What do I need to do? Like,
right. Yeah.
That's a far simpler thing than this.